Well, Joe, maybe we go ahead and get started because I know it's
All right.
it's the last session and people have been very generous with their time with us this week, and I want to be mindful of that. So um, maybe we go ahead and kick this last session of RTG 2023 off.
Absolutely. And there's a bunch of French happening in the chat, just FYI. Like, like, like Tammy was saying, we really appreciate all your time this week. We've had some great sessions. We've had some great discussions that have come from the sessions. And we're really pumped that you were able to come take time out of your daily grind to hang out with us. For our final session of Rustici the Gathering, Tammy and I wanted to share an updated look at how we operate at Rustici Software, more specifically about the relationship between our culture and how we do customer service. So the big thing being, while the culture really has remained the same, our core principles remain to be one of the most important things to us. But how we apply these principles, they've changed a little bit. As we move to a more hybrid approach to working, we've had to get a little bit creative. One thing I will call out to while we are all here, we've got some very cute friends in our presentation that are all taken from our Pets of Rustici Slack channel. We've got lots of fun Slack channels, but one of my favorites, mainly because I can put pictures of my dog in at any time and I don't have to feel no shame at all, is this Slack channel where people will go in. We have dogs, we have cats. Tim V has a farm where we get lots of fun videos of some of his, I think he told me the other day how many sheep he has, but it's a lot, lots of chickens. So anything that could be considered a pet, we've got pictures, and we've got lots of them as we roll through the session.
Cool. So I'm going to pick it up here. Yeah, so as we started to put this together, and again, Joe and I did this session last year, and it's something that we looked at how we operate here at Rustici, how that translates and works into our approach to customer service and things we've learned. But we've always prided ourselves here at Rustici of having a pretty unique work culture. And this goes back, this is just a snapshot of what it's looked like over the past few years. Mike and Tim started this company back in 2002, and they really started it as a lifestyle company. So this was, they wanted to create a company in a work environment where they wanted to come into work, but they didn't want work to be all that they did. And so we have, a couple of premises here, and it's really give us your best 40, work 40 hours a week, and be empathetic. And we'll get more into that as we go along today. But those tenets were really based on and assuming we're all in the same building together. And obviously things look a lot different these days. We're not unique in this category at all. We totally understand that. But as you look at the shift from how much we relied on the office to drive our culture and give us access to each other for those, moments around a whiteboard and those spontaneous games of Pong, to Chris jumping out and scaring Andy every which way he can figure out how to do, all of that required us all being in the same building. So, obviously in 2020, we saw a big shift when we all went home. And then since coming back, we've seen an ebb and flow here at Rustici. So we've seen people that could come back to the office, meaning they live close enough to drive every day and come in if they wanted to. That's ebbed and flowed. So we now actually are a very distributed company where our footprint looks like people in Nashville, people in Middle Tennessee, and then people all over the country. So we're actually today, it looks like a third of us live out of state. A third of us live within a commutable distance to the office, but choose to stay home. And then a third of us come into the office for some number of days a week. So we've seen a bunch of different things happen here with people deciding where they're working now, and it's required us to rethink some of our core tenets, how we operate with each other. But it's also illustrating for us how important those have been along the way to support us having an environment like this. Joe, can you forward to the next one, and you can just get a good glimpse of what this looks like today for us. So yes, so previously we would just be in Tennessee, and then we had one person up in Massachusetts, and now it has sort of exploded. Really interesting stat for us over the past 12 months, we've brought on 11 new people here, and all 11 of them aren't able to come into the office on a regular basis. So we've had to adapt not only how we operate every day, but how we onboard people as well. And the only way this works is for us to really be true to ourselves and hold close the tenets that that Joe and I are going to be talking about in just a minute. They enable us to be able to support this kind of dispersed and distributed collection of people and still be able to operate with empathy and the trust and accountability that are core at what we do here. So we're going to dive in a little bit, tell you a little bit more about what those are, how they apply to you, where you might see them show up, and how we work with you and support you, and maybe give you some ideas on how you can incorporate these tenets and this approach into your own office environment. The whole goal here is, as we looked at that distributed, how distributed we are these days, that means we have 34 different offices where we all used to be in one office. And this term remote working is one that I get it. I understand. I've used the term casually over the last couple of years. And then it really dawned on me one day. It's like, that's like just the worst possible word we could use to describe this. Honestly, because part of what we're talking about is trying to make sure that you don't feel isolated. You don't feel like you're on an island or cut off from others. Connection to others is the thing that we've all been trying to focus on, how to bridge those gaps and make sure that people feel included, heard, understood, and helped and supported. So one of the ways we can maybe stop doing it is let's just stop saying remote, because that's the last thing we want people to feel. So please please pay attention to this within your own teams, your organizations. If you see somebody that's getting really close to a volleyball and starting to call it names, that's the time to step in and say, how can I help? Let's talk a little bit more frequently than we do. So as we try to continue to avoid the castaway effect and support all of our people where they are, meeting them where they are, let's talk about some ways that we do that. And that's where Joe and I are going to kind of give you some ways we do that here at Rustici.
And so while how and where we work might be a hair different, things like Tammy mentioned, might be harder to get a full squad for a game of doubles pong. That fourth person for crokinole might be, you might have to walk around the office some to find somebody. The mission at its core is still the same. So laying the foundation of our company back in the day with these 5 principles in mind, and really, and this is the hard part, is really sticking to them as we grew, because we blossomed up to 50 back in the day, then came back down a little bit. And now we're right around there again. But sticking to the principles while we grew really has helped us as we transition to a more hybrid workspace. Over the next couple of minutes, Tammy and I are going to go through all of these principles and give you an idea of what we've been doing internally and how you might benefit from them, either in your organization or how you might be benefiting from them as a customer. So Ryan Donnelly, I'm pretty sure it was Ryan Donnelly forever ago. I would say he'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I know he's in the middle of camp pickup with his kid, one of his kids. But I'm pretty sure he said you have to be a bottomless pit of empathy to be successful at this particular job. And he's not wrong. This is the driving force of everything we do, from how we interact with each other in the office, how we interact with each other over the Google Meets, and even how we interact with our clients. One of the most important things we do as support reps, or at least what we try to do, is when you all come in with an issue, we try not to think of y'all as just bringing an issue, but we want to fix that issue, but we also want to make sure we understand the impact that issue has on your learners, your products. So we're not just fixing a thing, we're hopefully fixing a thing and then delighting you in the process.
And so what that looks like internally, as Joe mentioned, how does that show up or manifest itself in how we treat support? It really starts internally as well. So you can't really expect people to be empathetic with others if you are not sharing that empathy and showing them what empathy looks like internally. You floating heart, thank you.
I'm sorry. It's hot in here. Had to.
So, and it's interesting. So Joe had on the previous slide sort of the operating system and the tenants, and it all starts with empathy. And it really does, in order to be empathetic and to lead with empathy requires the other four tenets we're going to go into as well. But it is definitely this dependency, right? This foundation of we can't be empathetic if we're not doing all of these four things. But where empathy shows up for us internally, it starts with two pretty big principles for us. We want to meet people where they are. And so for us, the ability to support a hybrid working environment is the best expression of that we can show people, is that we trust them to give us their best 40. We give them that empathy and treat them. We assume positive intent, right? So we're going to give them that trust and accountability to say, we assume positive intent, you want to do good work, and we trust that you will be able to, regardless of where you're physically located. So that's made it easy for us to say we can work in a hybrid environment and we don't have to have eyes on people all the time because we trust them and we hold them accountable. And we hope that they hold themselves accountable to others. So there is definitely this dependency here of giving people this flexibility to give us your best 40, wherever that might be, is our way of showing empathy to meet people where they are. And it definitely does require a little bit of trust and accountability on everyone's part to make this work, so that we can continue to operate in this way.
Being excellent to one another. And I had in my notes, and I don't know who I stole this from, but it's from someone that I hope is not Tammy. Be excellent to others, and there's a good chance they're going to be excellent right back to you. From day one, from the moment I was hired back in 2008, one of the first things that Tim and Mike Rustici tried to get across to me is that one of the most important things is to be a positive force in our community, being the e-learning community. And that looks like providing, resources to folks who are navigating our website, navigating the challenging waters of e-learning software in general. We didn't have as many customers back then, but it was, the same principles are all here. We want to be a positive influence. We want to be able to help people. You all are customers, but hopefully we are also reaching out to these folks that may not be customers, but we realize e-learning standards are hard. There's not a lot of information out there, save the specs, and I would not recommend anybody running and reading the SCORM spec. We have them here in case you want to come hang out. But the fact of the matter is that we want to provide as much information as we can to all of our clients, be helpful to people who need it. We have lots of knowledge sharing areas where you can download our SCORM packages, the golf samples. You all probably have looked at them. Yes, they are a little rusty and probably need another work. It's on my whiteboard that you can't see because I have a background, but they work. They are a good, they give you a good view into how SCORM content can actually work. We have our knowledge base, which is also pretty good. It's got some knowledge of the ancients in there, but also we're doing a good job updating it with our newer products. Speaking of products, we have user guides. Our user guides are fantastic. Our engine docs, our content controller user guide, the cloud user guide is fantastic, but it's all out there for us. Another interesting thing, and a thing that really I was just amazed by when I started, was Ask Us Anything. From day one, Mike and Tim had a big old button on their website, www.scorm.com, that said, ask us anything. And people asked us anything, from, that good soup recipes, what our favorite superheroes are, anything you could think of, somebody would have sent to us. But then most importantly, it kind of gave this lifeline to people who needed it. People who said, I've got a SCORM 2004 course with a bunch of sequencing in it. I can't figure it out. SCORM.com, please help me. And it provided us with the ability to have these conversations and really help people when they needed it most. From a client standpoint, we do regular case studies with our clients where you can highlight what you're doing with our products, what has been successful for you. I bet that somebody might put an email address in the chat for somebody you can contact if you wanted to be a part of a case study. But it's something we really like doing. And then lastly, following up is a huge part of our daily operation and support. It would be very, very easy to answer a question and say, cool, solved, see you later. But we realize that a lot of the questions we're answering aren't, this is your password, see you later. They are more nuanced and they have a lot more than just, here is your answer. So we will do things like leave your ticket open and say, hey, did this work for you? If you are in Basecamp right now, you probably hear from me more than you want to. And I'm also very open to say, I have thin skin. People might tell you otherwise, but I have thick skin, pardon. They'll tell you I have thin skin, but tell me not to follow up as much and I won't, but we want to make sure you're being taken care of.
Yeah, and actually, so, part of this is the full circle moment of being excellent with each other. Also, it kind of goes full circle, right? If you're excellent with somebody, chances are good they're going to either return that to you or hopefully pay it forward to the next person. So you'll notice here, like along the way, along with these adorable pets of Rustici shots, this might be my absolute favorite. Here's Astrid and friend. The quotes down here are from our customers. Some are from our employees, some are from customers. This one is a customer quote, and it's really, this just speaks volumes. So this was actually, by the way, somebody sent this directly to Joe. They're trying to buy Joe a beer with, so it's just, but it's brilliant. Obviously, he helped them, and it felt like more than just a job or what he was supposed to do. Like his experience and interaction with this customer elevated it. And part of that just comes back to being excellent and thinking about what would it feel like on the other side of that equation. And so that's what it looks like on the support side. What does it look like internally? It's a combination of lots of things, right? But it starts with the little things. And this is a place where, foundationally, it's really easy to do little things for people when you see them around the office or in person. And we've always had sort of the standing metaphor for us here is change the toilet paper roll, make it better for the next person that comes behind you. And it's really, we can't go to 34 offices and make sure that they have toilet paper lined up for the next, the next visit, whatever that might be. But so doing the little things, you got to think about how do these little things manifest? Where can we do this that transcends physical location? And doing the little things now means keeping an eye out. You'll hear us talk here in just probably the next slide about how do we communicate with each other and share information. And one of the tools that we rely on heavily is Slack. Lots of organizations do. For us, I mentioned it in the kickoff that you might have picked up on, but there's about 60 active channels that we use here at Slack. For a team of 52, that seems a little extreme. I as I say that out loud, I realize that, but we do allow for a communication pipeline for people to share information. And so what does a little thing look like when we're all distributed across all of these different locations is knowledge sharing. Share with people things you've learned to hopefully make their lives a little bit easier or better. Offer help. And so we have a dev channel, and it's really fun because we can watch the devs across all of the teams they're working in different products right now. They're probably working with different tool sets. And, so being able to share best practices across those dev teams is phenomenal. We have a couple of other specialty channels that people can just drop knowledge in and help people along the way. So that's one of the ways we're sort of filling that gap and making sure that we're able to do the little things and help people out that doesn't always require some sort of physical manifestation of that. But we do also have those moments. Liz Poston is somebody that you'll hear us probably talk about more than just on this slide. She's our office manager, and She has this wonderful knack of providing all of these special, really quirky, silly, whimsical flares to daily work here. And that means if she's going to ship you a replacement keyboard, you're probably going to get some punny little card in there with a terrible potato pun. Yes, maybe Caleb's been spending too much time with Liz. I'm not sure, but she's going to brighten up your day in a funny, unexpected, quirky kind of way. And Chris Tompkins is probably going to, drop a meme or a GIF directly to you in Slack just at that moment because he picked up on something that said, hey, this person might need to laugh today. So those little things, those surprises go a long way. As do celebrations. So we find weird ways of finding opportunities to celebrate the minutia as well as the major things here. But you want to be able to celebrate and give people that chance to really brag on themselves a little bit. We'll talk about that here in just a little while. So being excellent can be a lot of different things, but it ultimately, it's just leave it better than when you found it. And that means maybe brightening up somebody's day, maybe going that extra mile. As Joe talked about in support, it's not just answering the question, but it's probably providing a little more context, more information to answer what you think might be their next question. So maybe just take it a little extra. And we do that in fun ways around here. And we have to get a little creative now that we're in more parts of the country.
Yeah, I see your fire starter comment, Anthony. That was a good one. And also, I want to call out that Anthony had an image of an Intellivision in his presentation yesterday, and took me back, and that was awesome. Also, Brett, sadly, I don't drink beer. I would love to, but I stick to Diet Coke mostly these days. So also, I believe Liz is magic. I do think she's probably mostly human, but we don't deserve her. Okay, oops. There was that double click that Alicia warned me about. Being transparent. One, this is one of my little boys. This is Archie. I don't think Drake made it into this one, but I'm not going to tell him. It's okay. But this is from when we were working from home. He was a puppy, and actually down in the bottom right, you can see that's actually my brother Ryan. And Archie had heard Ryan's voice and knew Ryan, and immediately just got in the camera and wouldn't let go. But that's a different story for another time. But transparency, huge. Internally, externally, gaining and keeping the trust with clients really starts with this. We have lots of ways to communicate with our clients, whether you're in the implementation phase, that's usually Basecamp, the support phase, Zendesk. But we have lots of ways to communicate, and I'll talk about this a little bit later. We want that communication to just flow when you need it. I'll let you grab finding that next part. Tammy.
Oh, sorry.
That was a late
pattern, and I forgot to. It was my turn. So on finding the right solution, that goes to we want to connect you with the right technical solution, and we're going to do that through a series of things. We're going to be listening in the sales process. Joe and the team are going to be unpacking that along the way. But one of the things that a lot of people might not realize here is when we talk about finding the right technical solution, that the way we're structured here and the way we sell things is designed to only support that. So we're a little bit unique compared to other companies you might work with, that there is no quota and there is no commission here. So when people you're talking to at Rustici are exploring a solution with you, there's no hidden agenda for them. There is no measurement or metric on their side of things that's driving them to offer you one product over another or force you into a timeline that's not right for you. And so we really do like to call that out occasionally, because I think we've all probably felt places where we've been sold to and somebody's agenda might be kind of dictating or driving the technical decisions or timing of my business decision. And that never feels right. So if we kind of go back to that empathy, what does this feel like? Part of why we don't have those commissions and quota structures here is because we don't like the way that feels, and we want to remove that as part of that process. So yes, when we talk about finding the right solution, it is truly do you have a problem that we can help you solve? And do you have the resources for that solution? And that means people and or budget. It doesn't necessarily, so that means, can you work with the software that we offer? We don't want to sell you something that you can't use or don't know how, or won't be able to execute well. So yeah, so that's sort of, as we talk about transparency here, letting you know how we operate on the back end of things when we're in the sales cycle is, I think, really important to bring up in this part of the conversation.
Absolutely. And a big part of that is owning our failures. When I first started, Tim Martin used to always tell me that I needed to pay attention to the question that is being asked, even if it's not the question that's actually in the text of the question, and to really try to get through that text to find out what the actual problem is. We hope to get that right every time. However, sometimes we don't. Sometimes the answer isn't what you want it to be, and it's not like I ask mom something, I don't like that answer, I go to dad. It's just not what you're looking for. We hope that you're transparent with us and to tell us, hey, that wasn't what we were looking for. Maybe restate your question. Transparency can be a two-way street. I think we've talked about that. But we want to make sure that we make things right. There are some of you that may have heard me use the phrase, I think I've failed you here. And it's not like an emotional failure, but this is like, I failed to understand your problem. And the biggest part of a situation like that is we want to learn from it. We want to make sure we make it right. We want to make sure you get what you need. And it's a part of our process. This includes things like postmortems for when I hesitate to say things because we're on the internet, but when things might go sideways, whether those things are, you can probably figure it out. But it doesn't happen a ton. But we want to learn from all of our mistakes, whether they be a technical mistake, a soft skill mistake, and we want you to know we are doing so.
Awesome. Yep. So I'll pick up the thread on the internal side of things and transparency and how we operate internally. When it comes to transparency, sharing information is obviously the thing that we spend a lot of time and focus on. So sharing information and communication together. Just like Joe mentioned, there's multiple channels on the support side. I think he went through, all of the ways that you can reach us and find information. Supplementing that are your account managers and things like RTG. So as we talk about hybrid situations, trying to work in this world where we're in person and virtual, thinking about asynchronous and synchronous ways to do that. And so internally, you heard me say we've got about 60 different Slack channels. So Slack is probably our primary system of record at this point on how do I know what other people around me are doing? I'm going to go to Slack and I'm going to take a look at that. That means, so we've given people the ability to share information with us. We want people to tell us, what are they working on? We actually have a channel called Working On. That's what everybody contributes to let people know, here is my most important work for the day. Here are the goals that I have. Here is what I'm working on, literally. That's what it's for. And sharing that information only helps connect the dots for everybody on what's going on. Along with that, though, but we have to offer other channels, right? We have to meet people where they are. And if we were just doing with Slack, that can be a very, sort of asynchronous shout at the ether, is anybody listening kind of thing. So we supplement that. We use, obviously there's direct messaging and some huddly features in Slack, but for us, we found it to be more useful to use Google Meet. So, one of the rules of thumb we try to employ here is, if you've got a little back and forth going on, probably best to fire up a Google Hangout if you can, or a Google Meet, I think is what they're calling it now, or have been for a while. But fine, get on the phone, get together in a room. And if that means firing up a meeting and getting on the screen and talking through it together, do that if you can. That's going to be a lot more helpful. So thinking about multiple ways to provide communications to folks. So we've got our Slack and our Google Meet are sort of the go-tos, and those support everybody, knowledge sharing what they're up to. This also means sharing when you're bumping into some hurdles or challenges. So it is, when we talk about transparency, it's the good, the bad, it's all of it. Because part of sharing that information means being okay, being all right with asking for help and letting people know, if you're struggling or bumping into something. But so you want to be able to open up those channels. We also supplement these, virtual tools with virtual in-person opportunities as well as in-person opportunities. So over here, that looks like what we call Tater Talks, which is a breakfasty type of meeting. We do these about quarterly. And we have in-person meetings that have recently rebranded to a thing we call Quail, that honestly would take too long for me to even explain how we got to the name Quail. But we do these 3 times a year where we meet in person in our office in Franklin, and people have the option to join us. So it's not required. Some people don't travel, some people don't want to. We're matching pace and style. We're going to meet you where you are. But if you want to be here and come to the office and see people in person, we'll enable that for you. So you want to be able to offer different flavors, on the support side of things. Along with the support team, you have your account managers, and then you have things like this, like Rustici the Gathering, our closest thing to probably, it's our virtual in person with all of you. So being able to offer those multiple channels to help communicate and take down some of those barriers that you might be bumping into. Because ultimately you want people to be able to feel safe, tell people what's going on in their world, be open, be honest, share the good and the bad, own that success and that failure. And that means giving people making sure they feel safe enough to do that. But it's also the accountability that you have to let us know if things are taking longer, if you're bumping into a hurdle, because a lot of times all it is somebody, all we want to do is help you. So making sure you have those open channels for people to use and to share what's going well, what they need help with, and feeling comfortable asking for that help.
This is my favorite slide. I'm glad we get to talk about it. Be yourself.
Is it Lupa or is it the topics? What part of
both? Both. The fact that the ears and glasses got put on Lupa, I mean, respect, because the Puggies would not let me do that at all. But being yourself is a big part too of how we operate. Our goal here is to create memorable interactions with our customers, and I very carefully don't use the word. We used to use the word memorable transactions, and it sounds so businessy and gross. But we want to create these memorable interactions with our customers, with our prospects, with people in the community, so that they can remember us. Let our personalities out. Having the ability to project them and be ourselves just allows people to be comfortable in their own skin at work. I mean, it took me, I'll be very honest, it took me a long time to be comfortable in my own skin. And I'm super thankful that I get to come to work and I don't have to, take off my outside uniform and put it in a closet and then take my work uniform and put it on. Although I have been asking for coveralls for everybody to wear coveralls at work. That is a new thing. I'm probably not going to win, but I love that ability that I get to be myself when I'm in my home office. If you all have talked to me, you get to see all of the art that I have behind me, which is mostly Disney related. But I am me. I get to be Joe, and that makes me happy, which in turn hopefully gets felt on both the other employees I talk to, the clients I talk to. I'm hoping that gets across to y'all.
And it does. So that's one of the things that struck me when I first came to Rustici 12 years ago. Joe was one of the first people that I met. And it was so much fun to see somebody that, and this is what's amazing, is that for me, coming from an environment that maybe didn't embrace such individuality, it was a little bit of a surprise. I was like, wow, this guy is like really down to earth. And it's like, I think he's just a straight shooter. This is just what you see is what you get. This is really cool. And it's been like that since day one, since I've met Joe. If anything, like what you see is what you get. It gets even more colorful over the years. So I wish you could see like the sock and croc combination we have going on, because that's like Joe's signature style these days. And I love it. But yeah, it's true. Being yourself here, we want to create Joe talked about making, humanizing these interactions or making moments memorable. And we absolutely do that on the other side of the house. And we spend a lot of time thinking of opportunities and ways to give people the chance to interact with each other, and not always we're not in a huddle, we're not working on a work problem, like giving people breaks, but the space to play and be silly, because that's really where you start to see people's personalities emerge. And some of this is serendipitous, and then some of it takes time and effort. And here's where we're going to call it Liz again, because she is paying attention to finding ways to make those moments happen. And again, some of the things we've learned along the way as we're talking about how does this scale in a hybrid environment. Spontaneity is a little bit more difficult in some cases. And so we've learned that for us, and hopefully part of this session, we're going to drop some suggestions here, things that we do, and maybe you take this back to where you work and try it out. It's a lot of trial and error, to be honest, but this one seems to be taking hold, where we just have a standing 30-minute Tuesday afternoon option opt-in. So it's 30 minutes, that's pretty manageable. We've learned that you do need to get it on people's calendars so that they can participate and they're not surprised, and they sort of carve out time for it or protect that time, particularly for our people that work in home offices, that interaction is really important to them, because that's sometimes the only time that they get that throughout the day. And this is, we might all be wearing coverall shorts in these sessions, you never know. But these 30-minute sessions, man, there's probably a game of some sort that shows up, but it's allowed us to uncover over time and for people to share their personalities with us. Now we know who the Disney experts are. We know who the word wizards are. We know who the budding artists are in the company, because they've shared these talents and superpowers with us in little bits and pieces in those Tuesday hangouts. So by sort of giving people the opportunity with these fun, spontaneous, these fun moments that have nothing to do with work and are mostly playful, you learn a lot about people, and you give them safe ways to share themselves with you and kind of learn a little bit more and increase that engagement. So that's something that we've really focused on to help people feel comfortable being themselves and sharing with us who they are and what they care about. And then, we have Pets of Rustici. So this channel really helps us get a glimpse for what's happening on the other side of that camera, and letting people sort of share a little bit more of their lives with us in fun ways that we might not see every day. So we get to learn a little bit more about people, and by giving them that space to share with us. And then ultimately being yourself, letting you work where you're most comfortable is our ultimate way of supporting this tenet. It's the ability to say, you do you, you be you. If that means, working from home because it gives you an extra hour with your kids that you really care about, or you can coach their team, or you can pick them up from school. Absolutely. That's why we're doing this, is to allow you to be yourself. And hopefully sometimes you share a little bit of that with us, because you probably have some great stories and you might be able to teach us some things.
Always be listening. So in the closer for my not so scary content troubleshooting talk, I closed with talk to us, send us messages at the support address. Tell us what problem you're trying to solve. If you have an idea of, is there a product out there that does this because this is going to solve, this problem that I have, ask us. Chances are we've run into it. I know a lot of people, operate in this e-learning community and have heard rumblings of who's working on what, that sort of thing. But not only that, I don't know, tell us your favorite movie, tell us what you are into. One of my favorite things about hiring new employees is we get to hear what we're into, because, we have a whole user conference named after a game that somebody brought into the office in 2013. And at first we made fun of it, and now we have Rustici the Gathering, and a lot of us are obsessive about it. But tell me what, I already had this written down, but I kind of spoiled it in the chicken chat. Tell me your favorite Reese Witherspoon movie, and I'll tell you you're wrong if you don't say Sweet Home Alabama. But whatever you do, be in contact with us. We don't want you ever to feel like you're drowning for whatever reason. We use that term a lot, drowning, but we've got all of these channels, once again, for you to talk to us. And we want to walk alongside you as you're implementing, as you're running into issues. or as you have questions.
And I'll pick it up from here. And also, this is one of my little ones, and this picture breaks my heart a little bit because she's trying to tell us something. She had an ear infection and she was telling us something, but I missed it until we ended up in cone land. So you've got to pay attention. You've got to be listening. And sometimes that means with all of these channels, it's a lot. I get it. You kind of have to keep your head on a swivel and make sure that you're keeping an eye on things. You've given people all of these ways to tell you things, but so that means you have to be listening and reading and seeing looking for all of the ways that you want them to talk to you. So paying attention is really important. And sometimes it's not what people are saying, it's the silence that's the most telling thing. So you do have to kind of look out for hidden pleas for help is what I would call these, where, level of engagement might be slightly down, or silence, which is what we talked about earlier in transparency. Like the worst thing you could do is suffer in silence, but we should all be looking out for that. So we need to be listening, but we also need to be paying attention for the places where conversation isn't happening. But again, that can be anything from no comment to subtle things like, what emoji did they just use? Is there a level of frustration brewing there that we need to talk about? So this is really just boils down to paying attention and giving time for listening for new ideas, encouraging that space, but really just making sure that you're looking at all the channels that you've provided so that you can take that feedback and do something with it.
Absolutely. Also, Brett, respect to walk the line, but no.
Oh no.
To kind of wrap up, meet people where they are. I don't want to. Sometimes I find I do repeat myself sometimes, mostly because I'm getting older and sometimes I forget I said something. But in this case, it's just we want to meet our customers where they are. We want to match the pace and style of how they work. This really comes across during our implementations, especially engine and content controller. We want you to have access to all of us. And I actually said earlier today, when you send a support ticket to us here on the support side of things, you'll initially get myself, Ryan Donnelly, and Matt Bird. But it doesn't stop there. We do have a set of what I'll usually call thicker glasses that we can go and talk to, all the folks on the dev teams. We're not an operation that has our dev teams kind of siloed away. So nobody talks about the developers. We have access to everybody, which means you have access to everybody. And so when we hear things from you all about feature requests and things of that nature, you tell us what's important to you, and we make sure that either the folks that need to know that information have that information, or even better yet, we bring you along for the ride and get on a call with Ryan Sunday to talk about content controller stuff, or bring Jim Ingram in so we can talk about some of your needs for engine or our other products. But long story short, we're listening. We want to work, once again, alongside you. We don't want to be walking behind you, or even worse, I think, like running ahead of you. We want to be right next to you.
Exactly. I don't think I could say it any better myself. So on the match pace and style, we want people to be able to do good work, and we trust them to figure out where is best for them to do that work and give them the tools to do it. Just like we want to be able to support you in the pace and the style that you're telling us is comfortable and works best for you. And that might be fast, that might be slow, but it's a two-way street. So a lot of this is just being able to communicate and share that information.
Uh-oh. Are you ready?
Yep.
Oh no, it's a dog break. We had to take a brief moment before we wrap things up to show you some of the greatest hits so far of Putts of Rustici. Lots of fun things. We all love our fur babies.
It was too hard to only pick 5, so we didn't want to leave anybody out. So this is what we get to see every day, though. So this is one of the channels that a lot of people subscribe to just for the oohs and ahs throughout the day.
And that one up in the middle is Archibald when I take him to see the vet. Surprisingly, he loves it.
Yes, I realized Drake missed it. I thought I had Drake in earlier, so apologies to Drake. He's going to be mad at me.
Oh, he'll be fine. He'll live. He's been, he's Drake. All right. So how can these things help you? From our perspective, investing in our culture and our people, has gone a long way. I've always said happy employees create happy customers, but also happy employees tend to stay. And you having a partner with high employee retention rates means you get to benefit too. We always talk about, we have a bunch of people specifically on the Delight team that have been around for a long time. Save Noah, who just started a couple of weeks ago, but he's good. He'll get there. As far as all of the information and knowledge of the ancients, if you will. But fact of the matter, it's not uncommon for us to have more knowledge about your products or your projects than your dev teams, just because sometimes there's some churn with dev teams. They'll go work on other projects and maybe you might not have access to them, but we keep all of that legacy knowledge for all of your projects in Basecamp. That's why we have 3 versions of Basecamp at this point, and they have all of our implementations back to 2009 when we started using it. So if you end up with a question that involves your project that says, hey, we made this decision 7 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. Do you know why we did this? Sometimes we can go into the archive and say, oh yeah, we had this conversation and this is why we did that.
Yep, exactly. So Joe is he's being a little modest here as he talks about the Delight team. When we talk about, working with us and how our focus on happy employees should follow that it treats, lends itself to your happiness as well. That retention, happy people stay. That's, sort of one of the ideas behind making sure that you have a great working environment and you want to keep the people around you. And we've got some pretty well tenured teams, but I think the Delight team, so there's 7 people on this team, and Noah just joined us just months ago, like 2 months ago. So it's a growing team, but across those 7 people, there's 45 years of experience at Rustici software alone. Like the Donnelly family, this is just Joe and Ryan, 25 years. So like there is a lot of knowledge. When we talk about, we won't say the word agent, we just have a lot of ancient knowledge that really helps lend itself well to giving those breadcrumbs, answering the questions our customers have as to why did somebody on my team decide to do it that way 10 years ago? Joe is probably the one that's going to put that breadcrumb back together for you to figure out, oh, because you guys were doing this back then. So that can go a long way. And it's not just our Delight team, our account management team that you interact with probably frequently is a team of 6, and half of them have been here 5 years or longer. So we've got some long-standing relationships on that side. And our sales team, half of that sales team has been here over a decade each. So they remember why you bought our software in the first place. So part of the benefit here is hopefully that you're realizing, we might be a lot of fun to work with, but we're also going to be pretty knowledgeable because we've been accumulating and collecting knowledge on you for a long time and understand why and where our software helps and fits into your bigger puzzle. So thank you for bearing with Joe and I as we talk about, so we had to land on this one. And it's fitting that we're wrapping up this slide today with one of Alicia Pack's Pack. So this is one of her kitty cats. But Joe and I and everybody here, just wanted to say thank you for sharing your time and your energy with us this week. Again, it's really fun to have Anthony and Brett even in this session who've been presenting. So they gave us their time and energy to give us all of that great information this week, as well as attend these sessions. So the gathering only works if our customers are willing to gather. And so we're super excited that you joined us for a second year. So Joe, let's kind of roll the credits here because this is how this whole thing comes together. Putting on an event like this over the course of 3 days with all of these different sessions running concurrently. And you remember that picture I showed you of the map a little while ago across 13 different states. It's a lot to wrangle, and the wranglers, executive producers, Alicia Pack, Tara Morey, Josh Darpino, Elizabeth Moore, they've been doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the last several months to decide what are we going to talk about, who's going to say it, and what's the platform that's going to deliver this to everybody. Oh, and keeping all of us on track, because there's all of the producers and speakers here, 30 of us participated in some way, which meant that executive producer team had to corral us. And candidly, we're not the easiest. We mean well, we have the best intent, right? But sometimes that might not be so easy for everyone to wrangle. So big thanks to Alicia, Tara, Josh, Elizabeth, and our producers and our cast that you'll see down here, as well as our guest speakers. So the 14 people that joined us from external companies that probably had to find extra time in their day somewhere. They stole some time away from something to create a presentation and share it all with you. Thank you. So at this point, I think we're going to officially close the 2023 Rustici The Gathering. And we really appreciate you. I think the last thing is, a lot of people ask us, can I get recordings? That's the most popular question, besides what's Joe's favorite drink of choice that we can buy him the next time we see him. And the Zoom platform that we have been in all week is a great resource for you. All of the recordings will be available there. You'll probably be getting at least 1 or 2 emails from us asking you for feedback, so we know should we do this next year? If so, what should we do more of, less of, as well as links to get to all of those videos from all of the sessions that you can watch yourself, and feel free to share with others at your organization.
I feel like we missed an opportunity to run like a Cannonball Run style bloopers reel at the end.
Yes.
But then also I'd like to add, where we really failed is we should have put Caleb's House of Cards video at the end of this, but I only saw it this morning, Caleb. It was pretty amazing. Anyhow, thanks, y'all.
Thank you.